Welcome to the Springfield Township Board of Trustees meeting. It is August 11th, 2020 at 5:30 p.m. Mr. Burning, could we please have the roll call?
Yes. Ms. Davis?
Present.
Mr. Burning?
Present.
Mr. Honolaw?
Present.
All the trustees are present.
Next, I would ask everyone to please stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, with liberty, justice for all. Jumping ahead. Okay, first thing we have here this evening is approval of minutes from our regular work session of July 14th, 2020, and our, actually that was our regular session, and then our regular work session of July 28th, 2020. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Seconded.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Next, Mr. Burning, I'll turn it over to you for our financial report.
Let me loosen this a little bit so I can speak. For the month ending July 31st, 2020, the township expenditures were $1,980,561.08, and the receipts were $826,142.92. We have an ending cash balance of $18,781,132.81, including obligations for expenditures, payroll, regular operating costs, ongoing capital improvement projects, and investments. What I request is a motion to approve the receipts, warrants, payroll expenditures, and updated current revenue reports for the period ending July 31st, 2020. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Seconded.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, and I want everyone to know that financial reports are available for viewing at the administrative offices during regular business hours or on our website 24/7. That's all I have, Joe. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dan. Next, moving on to departmental action and discussion items. Mr. Gilbert, do we have a report?
We do. Thank you, Mr. Harnelaw. This evening I have two action items. The first is actually to set a public hearing, date and time for two different dangerous property declarations. The first being at 453 Sheffield Road and the second being at 11 Ridgeway Road. I would suggest if we could possibly set those dangerous property public hearings for our September meeting, which I believe is, that would be September 8th. If we could do those at 4:45 for 453 Sheffield and 5 o'clock for 11 Ridgeway. Does that work for the board?
What time did you say?
4:45 and 5 o'clock.
Yes. Works for me.
Okay, I just entertain a motion to set the date and time for September 8th for 4:45 and 5 o'clock respectively for 453 Sheffield and 11 Ridgeway.
Do we have a motion then to schedule the meeting for September the 8th, 2020 at 4:45 and 5 o'clock?
So moved.
Seconded.
Is that September 8th? Yeah.
Mr. Burning?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Sorry, I was taking notes.
Thank you. And again, that's in anticipation that the board would pass Resolution 71 and 72 this evening that's on the agenda relative to those two properties being recommended to be declared dangerous by the fire chief. And if you have any questions regarding that, obviously he's here to answer those. Secondarily, as the board is aware, for several decades, I believe, we've leased a piece of property from the Wyntonwood School District, which is known to the community as Hellwig Park, which is off of Winton Road, just south of Winton Woods Park. It's mainly used for baseball and other athletic purposes. that entire complex is sort of a piece of property in transition, mainly because due to the Wyntonwood School District's capital building plan, that particular school, Lakeside, is scheduled to be closed and torn down, and therefore that particular school district will not have any more buildings within their portion of the school district that's located in Springfield Township. As a result, they are looking to develop different alternative options and uses for that entire property, which doesn't necessarily just include Hellwig, but a lot of properties to the north, which is the bus depot and then where the school sits as well. So due to the lease agreement that's currently in place, it automatically renews for 20 years and therefore has a limited ability for them to get out of the contract or the agreement if they find an alternative use for that property. So they reached out to me several weeks ago to inquire about creating a new draft agreement that would enable, first of all, that it to be a less than a 20-year renewable lease. So they originally proposed a 1-year lease with a month-to-month thereafter, and then allows them to get out of the lease at any point in time. I've subsequently went back to them and proposed a year-to-year lease with a 90-day out for either party at any time for any reason. And at this time, I've yet to hear back from them. However, due to timing we're currently operating without a lease on that site because the previous one expired, I believe, the 24th of July. So because of that, and knowing that their response to our draft is imminent, and also knowing that it most likely meets their desired goals in order to be able to utilize that property and have an out to explore other options for that property, I'm asking for the board's approval to authorize the administrator to execute the agreement with Wyntonwood City Schools for the Hellwig Park lease, which now, in addition to changing the terms, outlines a more specific boundary of what's considered the park property that we're responsible to maintain, whereas the previous agreement really left it up to interpretation that we may be responsible for the entire school district property, when in fact it's just the Hellwig portion. So I know that's a mouthful, so I apologize. But essentially, I'm just asking for the board's authorization to execute the agreement, assuming that the Wyntonwood School District agrees to the terms from which we proposed.
Do we have a motion to authorize the administrator to execute the agreement, provided that they reach an agreement with Wyntonwoods?
So moved.
Seconded.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
In discussion items this evening, the one item that I do have, obviously, which necessitates some extensive conversation with the community, is the police and fire department levies, which we announced to the community this past Friday that the board took action on at a recent work session to place those particular levies on the ballot. As the board is obviously aware, this is something we've discussed going back as far as 2 years ago, knowing that, looking at the budget projections for both the police and fire department and understanding that those departments has not seen an increase in revenue for operational needs in the fire since 2011 and in police since 2009. So going on 10 years for one and over 10 years for another, expenses obviously increase exponentially when you talk about a decade's worth of operational costs. However, revenue has remained the same for that same period of time. And the way the levies operate and the way levies generally in any community, typically you're looking to bring in more revenue than you spend in the beginning, and you start to expend or spend more than you actually bring in the latter years of the useful life of a levy. So it's what we in government speak call the bow tie effect, where you're drawing down on your reserves in the latter parts of the years of a levy. I'm pleased to say that due to very frugal and prudent spending, both on this board and recommendations by both chiefs, we've been able to extend the useful life of those levies almost twice as long as they were predicted to be. Generally, when you pass a levy, your projections, the only thing you can really go off of when you do budget projections, is that they should last between 5 and 6 years. Obviously, we've been able to extend those to 10 and well past 10 on another. So we knew that we were going to have to look at bringing in additional revenue for police and fire. And as townships are considered sort of a la carte government, meaning you have specific levies for different operational needs, in particular police and fire, we don't have a robust general fund like cities do where, you know, the council or the mayor gets to dictate where that big pot of money goes. We have specific levies for our two major departments in police and fire, and those revenues can only be spent on those respective operational needs of those two departments. So we know that every 5, 6, and in this case 10 years, we're going to have to either look at reducing the service we provide to residents in police and fire or increase the revenue in order to maintain or increase that service. These two levies are aimed primarily at just maintaining the current level of service that we've provided to the community over the past 10 years. We knew that even prior to the pandemic and everything else that's happening in the world right now, especially with the troubled economy and obviously most notably with the pandemic, we knew we were going to have to look at increasing the revenue for those two departments prior to even last year. We had extensive conversations about waiting, right, given the circumstances. And I think the projections demonstrated that waiting would have catastrophic effects on our ability to maintain the operational levels of those two departments and continue to provide that very essential service to this community. So I know the board made the very difficult decision to move ahead with placing those levies on the ballot, knowing that waiting any longer just puts us further in the hole and probably would dictate a greater ask later in terms of more millage to the residents and property owners. So I just to provide some additional info, obviously it's 2.5 mils for each, so 2.5 mils for the police and 2.5 mils for fire is what was being proposed on the ballot. The good thing is the residents get to decide. The trustees only get to ask the question. The residents get to decide whether or not they want to continue the same level of service for these two departments. I know that some are asking, well, how much is it going to cost? Well, it's about a little over $7 a month for each. So about a little under $15 a month, what it would cost a homeowner of a $100,000 home for each of these departments to maintain the level of service for at least the next 5 or 6 years, and hopefully the next 10 to 11, like we've been able to extend the levies that we're currently operating under. What will it be used for? Obviously, it's going to be used again to maintain the level of service for police and fire, predominantly to put medics and firefighters on the street as well as police officers on the street to continue to do what they do to serve this community. So I think it was, we put it on the agenda tonight, obviously, just to, again, continue the conversation, open the dialogue, and I don't know if the board has any comments regarding those levies or not, but we will see what the community wants. But
Well, Chris, one thing I think that everyone should know is that as a board of trustees, we are reluctant to put levies on the ballot. As the board of trustees, we cannot raise taxes. That only the voters can do that. We have to analyze the situation, and when we think it is the prudent financial thing to do, then we put the question to the electorate, and the voters are going to decide if it's the level of service they want. The issue that was, I think, compelling for me was if we wait, we can get ourselves into a bind where we're going, because we are an a la carte government and we don't have, we're not flush with money that we can take from other places to subsidize our police and fire. We could be in a situation where we're having to lay off our employees. And I will tell you, we have some of the best employees, and I get this from talking to prosecutors, to judges, to talking to other people in other jurisdictions. We are well respected. I mean, our departments, our police and fire departments, what makes them what they are the employees. And we've invested so much in them, in training and just the whole culture. To lose them would really be a loss to the township. And that's the reason I think we had to put it on the ballot now. Timing's not great, but it's just the thing. It's the right time, and we'll let the public decide. But it's to me, that was the critical thing in
Right, you talk about the respect of the departments, Joe, and obviously, you know, Colonel Browder and Chief Liner can jump in here, but as we've put out through our various social media channels over the past week or two, I think it illustrates the caliber of employees and the caliber of the departments that we have that is servicing this community. I mean, you have a police department that's one of only 40 in the entire state that's accredited nationally through CALEA, one of only 800 across the country, and there's over 13,000 local government police departments, and they're one of only 800 in the country that are accredited, have to meet the almost 200 standards. So you talk a lot about police reform in this country, understandably, but I will tell you that a lot of the reforms that's being asked for, this department has employed for the past 2 decades. And there's nothing that's being asked of departments across this country that this department doesn't already do above and beyond what's even being requested right now. If you look at the fire department, in 2018 was noted as the fire department of the year. Additionally, they were chosen as the location to house the UC mobile stroke unit, which just went into effect today to provide critical care for potential stroke patients throughout this region. We house that. Both chiefs are the president of their various county chiefs associations. So you speak to the caliber of these departments and the employees. I don't think you just have to listen to these words and believe us when we say it. I think you can look in the actions and the accolades that these 2 departments have accumulated over the past few decades speaks to that in volume. So I don't know if either you want to speak to the necessity for the levy or what you continue to do with that revenue, but undoubtedly it's needed.
I think one of the things would be worthwhile, and I don't know how many people have heard this, but Chief Leininger, could you speak just briefly regarding the mobile stroke unit? It's my understanding that just went operational today. Can you tell the audience here and the people that are watching at home what is that?
So Springfield Township has a partnership or a collaboration with University of Cincinnati Health, and through private donations they have developed a mobile stroke unit, which is a oversized ambulance with a CT scanner inside the ambulance. So it went into effect today. They made their first official response today at 1:39 p.m. They were dispatched to a stroke in Green Township. The unit is housed here at Station 79, which is right next to our building here. And they responded. Fortunately, the person was not having a stroke, so it wasn't necessary to administer TPA, but they were ready to go. They responded, they assessed the patient along with Green Township, and it was determined that advanced care was not needed at that time. So they came back here to Station 79, and they're standing by as we have this meeting, waiting for the next call.
And just to clarify real quick, when we say they, it's the University of Cincinnati has 4 staff members that are also housed in this department that operate the mobile stroke unit. So it isn't township employees. We're not paying township employees to go to Green Township. So they are UC Health Department or UC Hospital employees that are operating a vehicle that was paid for by University of Cincinnati as well. We're simply allowing them space within our department to operate, which obviously benefits this community greatly.
Well, and I think that's the important thing, is that having the stroke unit here in Springfield Township obviously benefits our residents. I mean, they'll make a quicker response. It's a dual response with Springfield Township EMS. So we respond together. We'll be dispatched together. And so we'll arrive on the scene quickly. We'll do an assessment. If it is determined that it's a stroke, that patient will be transferred to the MSU unit on the scene, and then they will go through a variety of their tests and then administer TPA if necessary. What's really exciting is that this is only one of 23 units across the United States. And we have it here sitting in Springfield Township, in our fire station. I mean, that says a lot about the culture that we promote, being innovators in our industry. And it's great for the region, because not only will respond here, but it also will respond in Hamilton County within a 15-minute response time of here, which means it will touch the majority of all jurisdictions in Hamilton County. So it is a regional asset. It's obviously an asset for us here in Springfield Township, and we're excited. They made their first run today, and they're now here 7 days a week, but they're here from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. They're available to respond.
And I think the science behind this whole thing is that when you're having a stroke, minutes can be critical to the outcome. If you make it, or if you're left, with terrible disabilities or impairment. And so that's why it's so critical to have these out here, and it's great. And Chief, I appreciate all you've done to get UC to locate it here. And it's something that we have. I doubt there's even another one in Ohio, is there?
There's a couple in Ohio. There's two
Are
in
there?
Columbus.
Okay.
But the thing that's really, really critical is that it carries a CT scanner. So all this diagnostic work that they're going to do, they'll do it on the scene in front of a resident's home. They'll be able to put the individual into the CT scan. They'll be able to see whether or not it's a full-blown stroke. And at that point, they can administer TPA or administer other drugs that can delay perhaps a bleed while they're en route to the hospital. So they have, it's state-of-the-art technology. It's incredible. The telemedicine component that they have on board, they'll be able to send photos or basically communicate real-time, like FaceTime type thing, real-time with a radiologist at the hospital and communicate real-time. So the things that they're going to do here in Springfield Township is actually going to set the standard for what's going to happen throughout the country. And that's what we're really proud to be part of, is being an innovator in the industry and seeing what things are going to look like in the future. I'm just amazed. I mean, when I see the work that they're doing, it's incredible.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you.
Well, obviously, we'll continue to talk about the levies, and more specifically, when we receive the issue numbers that's granted to those by the Board of Elections, which I think will come out sometime in the beginning of September. We'll know what the issue numbers are so that we can get literature out to let people know what to look for when they go to the ballot and make whatever decision they want to make. Again, to what level of service they want from these two departments, they'll be able to determine that November 3rd.
Okay. Thank you.
I apologize, but I'm unable to pull up the personnel update. So
As am I.
You want me to do it, Chris?
if you don't
April
mind, Dan.
McKinney.
Yeah.
You gonna do it?
Go ahead, Joe.
Huh?
Go ahead.
Well, in administration, the fire department, police department, public works, there have been no activity. In the Arts Community Center, we do have a new hire, and it's April McKinney, who's hired for the position of bartender with a start date of July 16th, 2020 at $12 per hour.
Thank you, Joe. I apologize. I could not pull that up. Technology, right?
Time's up. Ooh.
Next, I'll turn it over to Kim Flan for Community Events and Programs.
Thank you. Right now, we are finishing up our class register, or class session 4 over at the Community Arts Center, registering for session 5. And with COVID, all of our events to this date have been canceled / postponed. So we are working out the logistics on doing some online events, and we will be making those announcements very, very soon.
Okay. Thanks, Kim. The board does have a copy of the departmental activity reports, and unless there are any questions of those, that does conclude my report.
Thank you, Mr. Gilbert. Next, moving on to the resolutions this evening, we have resolution number 71, 2020, declaring a dangerous property condition at 453 Sheffield Road. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Davis.
Aye.
Mr. Vernon.
Aye.
Mr. Honolo.
Aye.
Resolution carries.
And regarding these resolutions, just so we haven't had a presentation here at the meeting, but I think it's important that we have had people go out and inspect. They've taken numerous photographs. The board has had an opportunity to review all those at a work session. So we're not just voting on something we've never seen, and these houses are in extreme states of just almost falling down. The second one is resolution number 72, 2020, declaring a dangerous property condition at 11 Ridgeway Road. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Davis.
Aye.
Mr. Burning.
Aye.
Mr. Honolo.
Aye.
Resolution carries.
Next, we have resolution number 73, 2020, which is supplemental appropriations within the general fund and the Public Improvement Tax Increment Equivalent Fund. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Davis.
Aye.
Mr. Burning.
Aye.
Mr. Honolo.
Aye.
Resolution carries.
Next, we have resolution number 74, 2020, declaring nuisances pursuant to Ohio Revised Code Section 505.87 at various listed properties within Springfield Township and authorizing statutory actions necessary to abate the nuisances. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Davis.
Aye.
Mr. Burning.
Aye.
Mr. Honolo.
Aye.
Resolution carries.
Next, we have resolution number 75, 2020, establishing assessment for abatement of nuisance and certifying the same to the Hamilton County Auditor. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Davis.
Aye.
Mr. Burning.
Aye.
Mr. Honolo.
Aye.
Resolution carries.
Next, under old business, do we have any old business before the board?
I do not.
Under new business, do we have any new business this evening?
Aye.
I do not.
No. The only thing I was going to say, and I don't remember the exact date, but I think Kathleen, you told us, My Cozumel, the restaurant that was down where Applebee's was, and it's been there for so long, and everybody keeps asking, when's it going to open, when's it going to open? And it's, Kathleen, what is it about?
Well, they're anticipating now the last week of August.
The last week of August. So maybe we'll finally have that restaurant open back up, but okay. Kind of a bad timing, but guess they got to make the best of it. Next, we come to citizens' participation. Is there anyone here that would like to address the board this evening? If there is, we'd ask that you come to the podium, state your name and address, and we'd ask everyone else quietly listen to what they have to say. Is there anyone that would like to address the board? Yes, ma'am. Or she does. Okay.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Vanessa Cawley. Of course, I'm a resident of Springfield Township, and I reside at 1647 Brightview Drive off of Huda Pole. And the reason that I'm here this evening, I have been a longtime resident of Springfield Township, about 43 years. And at this particular time, I'm retired. I've been retired since 2015. And so being a longtime resident, you know, I've always loved my neighborhood. You know, I love my neighbors, you know, the ones that have been a long time too. But unfortunately, it's come to a point where we have residents in the neighborhood, which is making things quite unpleasant for myself, and the longtime residents have been there. And I'm saying this in reference to the property. I am, of course, my own residence and so forth, but I noticed around me specifically that the homes are being rented out by way of, I don't know if it's, you know, Section 8 or whatever, but the biggest concern is if these properties are being rented out and whoever the owners are, they're not following up in terms of the people they're putting into their property, which is making it bad for me, myself, you know. And first of all, it's like younger people are getting in, you know, and they have children and things like that, you know. And right now, the neighborhood is just not the same. It's not, you know, it's going down. And again, these homeowners are not following up on their property, and things like that. Now, you try to get along with the, new residents, just to talk to them and everything about respecting your property. And that just doesn't seem to happen. There's always, arguing this and that or blah, blah, this, because they have, I don't have children. I have a daughter, but she's 46 years old and she doesn't reside here, so that makes it just myself. And, I'm the divorced and my husband, passed on after the fact. So it's just me, but most of the people, they have significant others or, their husbands and so forth and children, and I don't. But it's just now, I don't feel like all this time, I retired, but it's like my dream place. But now I don't feel like that anymore. I don't feel safe, and everything. And I have to admit, out of 43 years, I've only had to call the police twice, and that happened to be last week because of the neighbors on the side of me and across from me. Now I've tried talking with them, to try to understand about respecting the property, but it's not doing any good. So finally, I'm like, I can't do this anymore. I'm retired. I'm not out there trying to argue and, and things of that nature. And that's when most of the people, the younger people are like that, They don't want to. They're just hot-headed, blah, blah, this and that. I'm like, no, I don't want to do that. And I just want to know if there's, what is the residents, and these are some of my residents, my residents that reside on, on Brightview Drive, and we're here to try to find out what can we do as residents or trying to find out the homeowners to find out, to come in there, assess their property, talk to their, to the tenants that they have in there on their property and things, because it's not good for me. You have dogs here, vicious dogs. I'm living by someone that has 4 dogs. Trash all in my yard. Children jumping, over in my property and all of that. And I'm just not used to that. And I know something, I need something to be done, or what can we do as residents to try to, bring our property back to where it was, from the beginning. I know people have to live. I don't get me wrong. I know that. But you need to screen who you're bringing in your property and so forth, instead of just leaving them there and, well, that's it. No one comes and checks up on nothing, And like I said, I had to call the police, they came a couple of weeks ago because of the children with the property, trash and everything and profanity, they're cursing, and I'm not used to that. And I don't argue with children. I try to address it to the parents, but it's not doing any good, and I just want to know, what can I do? I just want to be happy in my home, And that's why, that's why I'm here, and we want to know what we can do, to find out who the owners are and maybe talk to them, or to tell them to come out and find, to do something with these tenants that they're bringing in their property. And it's just bringing our property down. We have our neighborhood is good, We all take care of our property, but now it's just like, like shared, well, it don't matter, it's your trash, you can pick it up, but I don't feel like I have to, but, that's how their attitude is and stuff. So what can I do, or what can we as residents of Brightview and Overview Drive try to figure out who these owners are?
Ma'am, it sounds like it's part property maintenance, and it's also part, I don't know if it's criminal activity,
There's a possibility.
bad activity, certainly.
Yes, that's a possibility. And then, with the children, a lot of trafficking, and things like that, that's coming and going, things
Like
of that.
drugs?
It could be. When I talk to the police, as far as like trespassing, that's an issue that I'm having right now, just trespassing.
Trespassing.
Yes, and then just last week, I was in my bedroom, and I saw somebody knocking on my bedroom window, and I saw an individual go past, but I didn't get a chance to take a picture, but I do have people just walking on my property and everything, and they're jumping over my fence, just taunting me right now because I called the police after the second time of 43 years, and now they're, taunting me and everything, and right now I don't feel comfortable, or anything like that.
Right.
But I'm going to take, as far as, cameras and things of that nature, and try to, do further, as far as protection, and to see the people that are, coming on my property and everything. But it's just always something every day, I know people, trash and everything, but when you talk to the kids, they use a lot of profanity. I'm talking young kids, 9 and 10 years old, they curse, and everything, and just, making jokes and so forth. As an adult, I don't do that level. So,
Yeah.
but still, it's a bars or something, being in a resident for 40, and these people have been there, like a year or something. They just moved into the neighborhood and things like that. So they're very, very new in the neighborhood.
Right, right.
Well, I mean, this is something we do here. I'm not going to say often, but it isn't uncommon. And I think what I'm hearing is just a sense of frustration because of a lot of things accumulating, right? That there's a lot of stuff. So
Yes, sir.
there's various angles of attack that we can deal with this. As Mr. Hernalaw indicated, is obviously the property side, right? So if somebody isn't maintaining the property or the grounds, there's a set of codes and regulations that we can enforce to address that. If there's criminal activity, obviously you've called the police once, or twice in 43 years, as you've indicated. So we obviously encourage you, as you see criminal activity, call us, right? That we depend on residents like you to let us know those issues because, we can't be everywhere all the time. But so if you could let us know, we'll definitely respond and do what we can from a criminal side. And I think Chief may want to have some comments regarding some of the things you said as well. But I'll leave you with this. It sounds like also some of the stuff is just general behavioral issues, right? And we will try and address those from a criminal standpoint. And I always try and be honest with people that there's certain things that the long arm of the government just isn't going to be able to resolve. And if kids are not exhibiting criminal behavior, there's probably not a lot we can do to legislate ethics or morals or a sense of decency into these kids. However, we will do our best to make it very uncomfortable for them to continue to act and behave in the way they do in that neighborhood.
Yeah.
So, I know, Chief, I don't know if you wanted to.
Thanks for coming. You came to the right place today. I just wanted to tell you, with rental properties, we have a very, very good relationship with the Metropolitan Housing Authority, which generally helps with vouchers to place families into these. So when there is different types of activities, we share information with them, and they are able to give us a lot of help with doing two things: either correcting the situation or helping that family find another place to go where it might be tolerated by other people. So if you've talked to them and that's not working, don't hesitate to call us. That's what we do. If it's not a CMHA house, we're happy to talk with the ownership of the house. We make a lot of calls like that in a week. Just like Mr. Gilbert said, sometimes things aren't necessarily criminal activity. However, we do have some pretty good conversations and get compliance with just acting the way people should act.
And you're right about that. I mean, no, children are, but as parents, we need to, have a better account of what our children are doing, and especially when you know they're doing it and you permit it, and so this is what I experience, So it's like you as a parent are not doing anything because you're allowing it instead of, trying to take control of it. So, that's what bothers me as parents,
And if I told you how many parenting conversations we have in a year, you wouldn't believe it.
I can imagine.
But that's what we do.
Yeah, right, after 43 years, that speaks for itself that I haven't had to call, and this is it's almost like, do I call, I've been
Yes.
debating, but it's just been happening so frequently and to the point I need to.
We're always happy to hear from you.
Yeah, but thank you, I appreciate it.
Can I have you, after the meeting, can I have you meet with Chief
Yes.
Browder and then also Kathleen Kennedy? We'll get information regarding maybe some of the property issues that may be dealing with, and we'll get a game plan together and attack those issues the best we can legally from our perspective.
That'd be great, all right, thank you.
One of the things that we
I do
did,
have one quick, well, you go ahead.
one of the things we did was nuisance properties, when we go through this, and we do this every month. If there's properties that are, have garbage laying around, don't cut their grass, things like that, and you report that to us, we'll let them know, and if they don't do it, then we'll cut it, and it gets added to the property taxes, which means the owner of the property has to pay it, okay? And that's when the owner starts saying, hey, what's going on here? You're not cutting the grass, and I've got to pay this, and So that's from this side. And from the other side, I mean, like the chief said, that's why our police are there. If you have an issue, call. They might think it's you, but they aren't going to know who called or whatever.
Right.
And if they start seeing the police around, maybe they'll behave a little better. But unfortunately, in all neighborhoods, and I've lived in a few of them in
Yeah.
Springfield Township, usually the parents take their kids' side, even if their kids did something terrible. So it's unfortunate, but it's sort of the way we are today.
Oh, yeah, you're right about that. You know, it's a totally different generation, you know, versus me being older and, you know, they don't think like we do, you know, take pride and, you know, they just don't care. And their children see this, how the parents react, and that's what they follow suit. And
I was more afraid of my father than I was of police when I was a child.
trust me, I know my daughter, I only had the one, and I mean, she.
We wouldn't do anything, and we say, Dad, we didn't do it. He says, well, that's for all the times you did something and did get caught.
Yeah.
How do you argue with that?
It's like my daughter, she lives in Atlanta, but she was like, I'm ready to come back home, Mom, you know. We need to calculate, you know. I said, it'll be okay, you know. I have good neighbors, you know, that's been there long term and everything. And we're not trying to put nobody, we just want to get along. But at a point, you just get tired of talking. And it's never been nothing out there. It's just every time I come, it's a whole thing. Oh, here she come again, you know. I'm like, okay, not no more. I'm going to take it in a different perspective and take it to, you know,
We
some
can't
other.
solve all of it, but hopefully we can help you out with some of
I
it.
appreciate
Just
that.
hang tight after the meeting, and we'll get some additional information.
Okay, all right.
If you come to,
Sure.
please,
Yes.
yes.
Thank you
Thank
for
you.
coming in.
Thank you.
And your name is and address?
Anthony Robinson, and I reside at 1640 Brightview. I've been there for 31 years. And piggybacking on what you said, kids are unruly. There's my neighbor, my immediate neighbor to the right, they have trash stacked up, hiding behind the shed. Okay, it's just trash almost as tall as the shed. Okay, the parents, we try to talk to them, and then they get confrontational with us and want to fight and things like that. So I want to know for myself, is there some kind of way that we can get in touch with the landlord, and or why is it that we have 4 families on Section 8 in our, just on our street? Is there a ordinance about that where we want to allow so many Section 8 people?
There actually is not, and here's why. It's a federal program. It's administered by the federal government, and it's pushed down to local agencies such as Cincinnati Metropolitan Housing Authority. They are responsible for administering this federal program. So here locally, not even at the state level, they cannot place any restrictions on Section 8 or housing choice vouchers because it's a federal program with federal regulations. What I can tell you is that here locally, this board, not this particular board, there's 2 elected officials that are new since then, but the township about 10 years ago, I would say, 8 to 10 years ago, probably, Joe, you were here.
Yeah.
We actually proposed legislation to our federal representatives in D.C., knowing that it was a federal program, to ask them to limit the concentration of housing choice vouchers in any one neighborhood, because the whole reason that the housing choice voucher program was even created, if you look at it, was they wanted to deconcentrate public housing in the urban areas. They wanted to get away from big, what they called projects, right? They wanted to get away from those and deconcentrate those out of the urban areas. Well, what happened, which either they were anticipating or they weren't, but it doesn't matter, the result's the same. These housing choice vouchers allow recipients of that voucher program to utilize that wherever they want. There's no limit. So as long as you own a piece of property and you're willing to take the $800 a month that provides, I think it's probably different amounts depending, but in general around $800. As long as you're willing to take that for rent, you can use it wherever you want. And there's nothing anyone can say or do about it. However, we proposed to change that, and we got no traction. They decided they didn't want to hear anything of it, and nothing ever happened. So what that means is your entire street, if you and everyone on your street decided that we want to rent out our house and we want to take the $800 a month, you could do that, and the entire street could be housing choice voucher. There's nothing anyone here or anyone in the state could do about it.
Well, I know at one time there was different communities that fought against Section 8.
Well, what they fought against were the building of public housing. So it was going to be owned by CMHA. That was what they fought about. that CMHA was going to build housing that was going to be owned by CMHA in their community, not that there was going to be people utilizing vouchers on otherwise private property. That was what they fought against. It wasn't the use of vouchers, it was the use of using taxpayer dollars to build public housing in a community. That's what was fought against.
So what can we do as homeowners? What can we do? Can we get in touch with the landlord?
We could, if you want, I mean, we could give you the ownership information of those properties if you want us to. And you're more than, yeah, absolutely, we can do that. And we can also contact them as well, as Chief Browder indicated, we will.
I think sometimes if it comes from the government, if it comes from us and, or from our police department who does have a relationship with them and say, you got problem tenants here, they are not abiding by, they have rules, right? Yeah, and if they're not abiding by those rules, Chief, I don't think it's often, but we have gotten them to evict some out of here altogether.
Very, very many. And the fire chief talked about innovation years ago. After Mr. Gilbert's legislation that was proposed, he said, there was no traction with it. So we said, as a police department, as a township, we're going to do all these different things, like he said, from all these different angles. So we developed that program with CMHA after finding out that there were all these rules in place. And there's certain criminal offenses that I've made a call at 10 o'clock one morning, and by 12 o'clock that noon, they were served with eviction papers. So yeah, there are a lot of rules involved for the serious kind of violations, but there's also for the minor ones that, CMHA will penalize those homeowners and the renters as well. So, it's sharing of information is really important here.
That is assuming that they are housing choice vouchers, which
Right.
obviously I don't know that.
One other incident, the one girl that has 4 dogs, the dogs ate up one of the killed one of the dogs. Ate up. And that's back there eating.
Oh, my gosh.
It's been up there, I don't know how many times. It's ridiculous.
Their dog killed another dog.
Their own dog, it was 4 in the
There are 4 in there, and one of them ate the other dog.
dog was in the backyard.
And then they had all of them dogs in their house too.
Well, as far as the messes, you said the garbage and everything, if you can give us the addresses, we can take a look at that and right, well, they'll meet you afterwards, and they'll get those, and we can go out there in the next few days, I'm sure, and write them a notice that they either clean it up or we clean it up. It does take, about 40 days?
Yeah, there's a lot of hoops that the state makes us jump through before we're legally allowed to go on property and do anything. But we make it as fast as legally possible.
Right, and we'll notify the owner that it's happening.
We did see them set out, because we set our garbage out on Tuesday evening. They set out a lot last Tuesday. Maybe they was only put so much out there, I don't know. As long as they admit you can put it out there.
Right.
Anyway, can I ask one more question?
You can ask as many as you want.
This is off this subject. Been there 31 years, right? And my one day, her husband went and had a petition signed because our streets are so bad. We have so many holes in our street, and the only thing they do is patch us. I've been there 31 years, and they have not repaved that street yet.
Well, they did pave the street that he was talking about coming up Hugh Road.
No, they ain't repaved our street. They haven't done anything to our street yet. Only thing they do was come and patch little holes. And that one, lasts so long.
Right. So you referred to Utapole, right? So,
Right view.
I want right view.
right.
They did something to Utapole, but they didn't do anything. They patched all the other streets.
Right. So let me kind of provide some context and then answer your question directly.
Yeah, I
So-
was going to add something to that, if I may, in reference to what she's speaking about. I did speak with Michael Gould. How you doing, sir?
Good, how are you?
Yes, I spoke with you back on, sorry to interrupt me, but I did speak with you back on May 28th in reference to, and I was going to do a follow-up call in September, in reference to what she's speaking about. And, I was going to be calling you the day for my birthday, September the 15th, so you were going to let me know what, information you might have in reference to that. Because that was, thank you to me, I did want to bring that up, that we had spoke about the street. And that, as she said, it hasn't been just patching up and so forth. And
Right.
as long as I've been there, there's never been, actually any renovating.
No, you're absolutely right. And I mean, we're acutely aware of the road issues in the township. I mean, we have 400 streets that we're responsible to maintain, which is almost 100 miles of road. We talked about levies a little bit ago and how those dedicated sources of revenues can only be spent on certain things. We have one road levy that was passed in the township back in 1997, and it generates $500,000 a year. And back then, you could pave about a mile with $500,000. Today, you can pave less than half a mile with $500,000. And I bring that up, not to tell you we're not going to do anything with your road, but to give you some context of the big problem we have, right? We have a limited source of revenue for roads, and we have an enormous problem. If we were to take every street that needs repaved in Springfield Township right now and bring it to a good condition, you're probably talking about $35 million is what it would cost. So you can see the $500,000 dedicated, plus the about $1.5 million we take out of our general fund, which is the only discretionary fund we have, and we put toward that. It doesn't get us very far. However, what I can say is through an assessment process that we've been doing recently, instead of creating a township-wide levy just for roads, we've been going into neighborhoods and creating these individual sort of levies, otherwise known as assessments is what the law calls them. And for about $50 to $75 a year for 10 years, residents, because we use some of the existing revenue that we get from taxpayers, couple that with hopefully some grants that we can get through the state, and then in addition to some of the assessment revenue that we can levy on property owners for 10 years, for about $50 to $80 a year for 10 years, we can give residents a brand new street. However, we're limited in how often we can do that every year because we have to upfront all the money. Even though we're assessing, we get that back over 10 years. So we have about $1.5 to $2 million a year that we can play with to do road repaving, right? So ironically, Mr. Gould and I just spoke about that neighborhood a week ago. And our idea is to propose to the board, and they're hearing this for the first time too, so to propose to the board that your neighborhood be one that we apply for a skip project for here later this fall. What that means is that your neighborhood, if we were to redo all the streets in your neighborhood, it's about a $2 million cost. We really can't afford to do that, nor could you afford the assessment that it would cost in order to do that. So our hope is that we can apply through a program known as SKIP, which we've been fairly successful at getting grant applications approved through that process. It's pretty competitive. Every jurisdiction in the county is vying for the same dollars through that program. But Mr. Gould has pulled off some wizardry in the past few years and been able to get us a significant share of that money. So we're going to apply for your neighborhood, hopefully, or propose to the board that we apply for your neighborhood here in September. And then we'll know by the end of the year whether your neighborhood is approved. It isn't our say. There's a committee made up of people throughout the entire county that picks different projects based on the score of their application and the condition of the roads. And hopefully this project gets funded. Then we'll come to your neighborhood and say, hey, look, we got half the project paid for through the grant. Now we need to come up with $1 million. So we're going to ask the residents to chip in a little bit every year. We're going to take some of the existing tax dollars you're to pay us, and we're going to pay the rest of it, and we'll be able to get your project done. So that's our goal, but we won't know whether it gets approved or not until probably the end of November, right?
It'll actually be probably early next year. Due to the pandemic, everything has been pushed back. Applications aren't due until November. We won't know results until the end of January, first part of February.
But once we know, and we come to you and talk about the petition, if the residents want to do it, your street will get done that year.
Well, it'll get done the following. Yeah.
Well, right, but I mean, if the grants comes when I say the following year, we usually get the information end of November and it's done the next year. We're going to get it in January, so it will be done in 2022. You wouldn't pay any money until after your street was done. And you would know, we would tell you, we don't know how much it would be per resident, but most of the time I think the highest one has been around $80 a year. And for 10 years, so if we can get a skip grant for $1 million, we pay $1 million, and then over 10 years, the residents, we don't get back near the $1 million that we're going to put up, but we get back some of the money, which will help us do additional streets. But that's how we've been able to get people come in and say, hey, we want our street done, and we gone through this process, and every single one that we've asked, the neighborhoods are 90% plus say, let's do our street, So we haven't had really any objection to it so far. And we've done how many streets, Mike? 15?
15 neighborhoods,
15 neighborhoods, not streets.
probably close to 100 streets.
So it would be on your property taxes every half year it'd be, I don't know the number exactly, but it might be $30, $40 every 6 months on your property tax.
We just don't know yet. Until we bid out the project, we have no idea what the cost is.
And we would come to you ahead of time and ask and tell you what we're going to do and give you the information, and then you all could decide if it's something you want to do or not.
It's voluntary.
Would that be, excuse me, reference to it, like, Mrs. Powell's husband, they got the, she might want to go down.
Yeah, I've been dealing with these people for a long time since they moved there.
Can you state your name and your address, please?
Cheryl Powell, 1632 Brightview Drive.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My complaint about it is nobody's home, none of their parents are home with these kids. My husband almost hit one of the kids and wanted to talk to the mother about him dotting out in between two cars. And she came to the door with a hammer. Yeah, talking about what was you doing, speeding? And my husband, he real calm about everything. He said, okay, I'm going back home. I done told her it wasn't nothing she did. Every day, if he was to ride past there about 1 o'clock, none of the parents is home with their kids. And they got kids that are special, that are teenagers, watching them. So all that they doing, I don't mind it, just like the basketball hoop. Ain't nothing for the kids to do. So I don't call, like, take the hoop down, because it's in the driveway, and their driveway is, like, facing my driveway. So I don't mind that being there, because they ain't got nothing else to do. But they do kind of take advantage of it. They be playing all night, bouncing the ball, and people got to work in the morning. And the incident that she's talking about, I have Ring, so everything that go on, it records and you can actually hear everything. Just like the kid said, no, we didn't cuss her out, she cussed me out. And I told the officer that came, I said, well, here, I got it on my phone. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So he didn't actually look at it because I played it back for her. And I got into it with the neighbor next to my neighbor that's next to me because they got twin daughters and they exaggerate, they lie. They daddy that lived with them came to my house. I opened the door, he started cussing me out, not knowing that it's on my ring, which I'm glad we got it.
Yeah.
But it catches a lot of stuff because, like, my whole front yard, we got it set up to where we could see anything. And them kids are so disrespectful. But the main thing I wanted y'all to know, the parents are not there. They come in like 5 something. I know they got to work, but when you got special kids, they can't watch kids.
Right.
And that's why I don't get mad at the kids, I get mad at the parents because that's their responsibility. Even I almost had to fight the lady's husband, because he was calling me out. I'm like, oh my God, my husband in the shower. I'm like, okay, that's all right, I'll just call the police. I called them, and I was showing him the video where the guy was like literally cussing. My kids can go wherever they want. I said, that's fine, but tell them to stay out my driveway, because I drive an Escalade, and if I back out, I can't see them down there, because they got small bikes, and God knows how many times I done stopped cars from hitting these kids. My one neighbor found the little 2 or 3-year-old walking down Hudipole by himself. My neighbor went and got him because he wasn't with nobody. Brought him back, knocked on her neighbor door. Nobody answered the phone, and that's the house he came out of. So the little boy said he was hungry. He took him to eat. came back, knocked again, didn't answer. Then he called the police. The police came out. And the little boy, I think he was 15 or 16, said he was in the basement asleep. It's always an excuse for it. And sometimes, you know, you can only take so much of that stuff before you say something. And that's me. Because like when that happened with her, she came and got me. She came and rung my doorbell and was crying because the kids was out there cussing her out so bad. So I'm like, it ain't nothing we really can do. Like you said, it's up to the owners. That's what it is.
We'll do the best we can.
I appreciate it.
And I just want to thank you all, 43 years and 31 years as residents of the township, 20. So thank you all so much for coming tonight, and thank you for being great residents. But the last thing that we want you all to do is get into an altercation with people.
Let me tell you, everybody tell you, your mama the police. I don't care if it's my child, I'm a cop.
Or,
If you don't want to if you don't want to respect our area,
right.
then you can go right along with it.
Right.
So in most issues the issues that you all mentioned tonight, these people in this room here, you all did the right thing by coming, and we're going to do as much as we legally can to help you all out up there. So just call us. Just call us or come every month. Our next meeting is September 8th. So if you want to come.
But you can come to every meeting.
Every
What I
meeting.
would suggest, and I've been doing this for the 17 years that I've been here, don't wait once a month.
Right.
Okay? All of our cards are back there. Call us, email us, whatever you need to do. That's what you pay us for.
Right.
Okay, because, I mean, we work so hard on what we own to keep it that way. And then for people to come in and don't control your kids.
Mhm.
And my husband kept telling the kids, don't run in the yard, don't come cut through my yard. And he went down there to talk to the mother. She came up there and said, how you know it was my kids? My husband said, because we have ring. Are them your daughters? Yeah, but I'm not ghetto. Where that came out of and from what, I don't know. I'm sitting there like, okay, we didn't say you was ghetto, because I know when we was young, we ran across people's yards. So that don't mean you ghetto, so is that something you trying to tell me? Okay, I'll leave that alone. Like I told my husband, next time, just call the police and show them the picture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how many times you done told them. Because like you said, one of y'all just said, they're gonna defend their kids, no matter if they was wrong or right. They always gonna do that.
Well, especially if they're doing some other things and the police keep coming, they're not gonna be happy about that. So they'll either get the kids to behave or they'll move because they don't want the police coming in case they're doing, I know earlier when.
Worse things,
When
yeah.
she was talking about drugs, she said maybe, and you were back there shaking your head,
I was shaking my
yes.
head,
I know you were.
I'm talking about that little corner up there when I be going to work in the morning. Trucks and cars pull up on the side. Somebody come from the dead end street around. I was like, shit. I called because I didn't want to be on my way to work and something happened and they start shooting.
Right.
The last thing they want is the police to be hanging around.
Well, they'll be hanging around because I used to call them a lot back in the day.
Yeah.
Oh, y'all want to stand around here? No, you don't even live up here. Yeah, they're playing loud music on the side of my house. Come up here, please. That's why they call me the police.
Right, right. Well, when the meeting's over, we would like for you to talk to the chief and give him the information so we can get going on this and see what we can learn and find out to do. That's important.
And you're always
Thank
welcome
you.
here.
Thank you.
We're glad to have you all here.
Thank you for
so
coming.
Welcome to come.
Thank you for coming this evening. It's important. You know, I want to change the topic back, though. Just we were talking about the streets a minute ago, because this kind of ties in very much with our two levies that we talked about tonight, and about it being up to the voters as to what level of service they have. So we've had this levy that was passed back in 1997, wasn't it, Chris?
Yes.
Yes.
In 97 for $500,000. And we know that's not enough money to come anywhere near paving all the roads in this township. 3 times this Board of Trustees voted to put the question of a road levy on the ballot. And I can remember, I know one of the years, we got a grill and we went out. I think, Chief, you guys were in on some of this. We went neighborhood to neighborhood. We would have grill outs and we'd try and get the people out and we'd talk to them and explain to them what it was about and everything. 3 times the voters said, nope, we're voting it down. And so and then it's made it very tough because we are scrambling and trying to do all kinds of things. And we've been very fortunate with the state grants that Mr. Gould's been able to get us, and in his predecessor for that matter. And so we've gotten a lot more done. You know, the $500,000 just doesn't get us anywhere. So it's just kind of the moral of the story. You know, the voters in the end get to decide what our level of service is going to be, how our streets, the condition of our streets. We try everything we can to stretch every taxpayer dollar as far as we can. But I just thought it was interesting. You know, it's a recurring thing, but it just kind of fits right in with what we're talking about tonight.
And I don't think a lot of people realize that. I know taxes are high. I know that. But here's one thing a lot of people don't know is 75% of the property taxes you pay, 3/4, don't come to Springfield Township.
Actually,
We don't get it at all.
Actually, 79% on my most.
Yeah, and you're most. We have portions of 7 different school districts, so it depends on what school district you're in. You're obviously in Mount Healthy, but probably 55 to 60% of the taxes you pay go to the school district. About 20% go to the county, and about 20 to 25% come to Springfield. So police, fire, parks, roads, everything we do, code enforcement, all comes out of just 25% of the taxes you pay.
Okay, I understand now, because a lot of people be like, we pay our taxes and they can't even get out there in the streets doing whatever, but now, since you said what you said, I understand what you're saying.
I do have to say this, don't take this the wrong way. 43 years, it takes 43 years for them to do something and just tax. That's not acceptable.
Oh, I know.
I think it's more like when they patch it, they just take something and hit it down instead of like rolling over it.
Wait, here's what I someone else in your neighborhood, I think I don't know the name of the street that he lives on. Overview. I had a conversation with a resident on Overview last week, and I explained to him, and I said, I say this a lot, and I know Mike does too, and when we say it, people look at us like we have 3 heads, but when I explain it, it makes sense. When you're in a situation like your neighborhood where we're going to apply for a skip project, we don't want to do too much repair to make it look too good, because when the rating team that analyzes the skip applications that determine whether you get the money or not through the grant process, if they go out and look at your road and it doesn't look that bad, then you're not going to get the grant. So we tend to want them, when we apply for these projects, I know it sounds bad, we want the road to look as bad as possible so we get high points, so we are more likely to get the grant money. I know that sounds bad, and people look at me like I'm nuts, but right now, it's better if we don't make too many repairs to your street until the rating team comes out.
Because that's a straight deal.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Because they put something down there, like when it snows, it basically melts the snow, so you won't be sliding down over to him. So I do give you credit for that. I like that.
All right.
That's all.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
My name is Maria Keys, and I reside at 1104 Graceland Court. And Kathleen, I want to thank you. I called her, about 3 weeks ago, and I understand you, Miss Vanessa. I have a girlfriend that stays in Forest Park, and their ratio, it's like 80-20, it's 80-20% in Forest
The percentage of what
She said
exactly?
the percentage of, Section 8 in Forest Park.
As compared to what? Like the total number,
Yes, 80/20.
when you say 80,
20 is 80%, 20% of Section 8. She said it's 80.
so there's 20% of the houses in Forest Park are Section 8, is what you're saying? Oh, we're way less than that, far less than that. I would say, I mean, we have 15,000 households in Springfield Township, and probably, how many Section 8 would you say?
Last time I researched it was 700.
Yeah, less than 1,000.
So no one really knows the percentage.
Well, I can,
We can find out. We
I
don't know if-
went to public school. Let me get my calculator real quick.
But Kathleen, I really want to thank you, like I said, Ms. Vanessa. We do have, and I don't like to call them renters, but we have people that own houses and then they rent them out. I had to call her because the renters, they moved out. I don't know what happened, but I sent her a picture, and I will take pictures and delegate it to the people that it needs to go to. And it was very deplorable. They left trash everywhere. The trash sat maybe for a week or two, but I did call her, and she did handle it. So I want to say kudos again, because when I called her, is that you over there?
Yes, that's right.
Okay, because he was different. He was at the last week.
Yeah.
And also, we had a blighted property, which I had explained to you guys. It was on Daly Road, and was that Madeline? Very bad. Is the owner still in the house, or?
We think he's in poor health. We're not sure, but no, at this time, I don't think he's in the house.
And I sent him pictures. I think you were on vacation. So he did help in the house. It was just so blighted. You couldn't see. It was like a blind corner. The bushes, you couldn't see the house. You couldn't turn left. You could just turn right. You couldn't go straight. And that was very bad. So I do understand. So last time I was here, I said, I don't want to be that person. But if I see something and it's not right, I will take pictures and I will delegate it to the people that it needs to go to.
4.5%.
4.5%.
If you take 700 and divide it by 15,000, 4.5%.
But the problem is, what Chris told you earlier is, in a lot of cases, they end up in, concentrated areas instead of spread out throughout the township. And that's what we were trying to stop them from doing, was putting them all in one area. And that's why we went to the feds and said, hey, we understand there's Section 8 houses, there's nothing wrong with that, but do they all have to be in the same vicinity? Can't they be spread out throughout? And they basically said, we aren't really going to talk to you about this, so go away.
I know people need a place to stay, but I just feel if you own property, you need to really investigate the people that's going to move in, because it can make the situation worse. Like with my situation, the garbage. I don't think garbage should be sitting out for 2 weeks. Mattresses. I did, when I called you, actually, the garbage can was sitting in the middle of the street. And so I did send her pictures. I don't know who owns that house.
I don't remember off the top of my head.
Okay, but it's an ongoing problem when they let people move in. But another thing, I noticed when I went down the street, someone had tagged the garbage. I think it was like an orange tag. So what does that indicate when they? Because I had called and I know you took care of it, so.
Usually that means that they put something in the garbage that they weren't allowed to, and that Rumpke didn't take it, so they put a sticker on indicating that we're not taking
No,
it.
this was after I called Kathleen.
They didn't take it there. My husband worked for Rumpke.
That's what that means.
It was orange or either green sticker.
Yeah, that's
So
what,
did you contact the person that actually owns the house, or?
You know what, I can go back and look, Ms. Keys, I'm not sure. But if the tenant isn't paying the Rumpke bill and the trash is just sitting there, we can let the landlord know that, that the tenant's not paying the trash bill, if that's the arrangement. Sometimes it depends on whether or not the trash is built into what they pay in rent, or if they pay it separately, but we'll find out.
Because I know it was not tagged when I sent you the photo.
Okay. And that could be that if they're not paying
Yeah,
the bill.
so afterwards, when I came past that is a problem with the, person that owns the house. And people only stay there maybe, I'll say like 6 or 7 months.
Yeah,
And then afterwards, you know, we see the trash and we don't want to see the trash.
right, yeah.
Like that. And also, I'm not gonna keep you guys long. The next meeting, I can bring up some more things. I wanted to reiterate on the resolution where you said number 71, where you said dangerous property and condition. What is the criteria for that? And then how long, when you do get a property like that, how long does it take? What's the process?
It has to be what's under the revised code, which is state law. It has to be structurally defective. Really three things, and they're pretty much related: unsafe, uninhabitable, and/or structurally defective. We tend to make sure that the properties we demolish meet all of the criteria. So essentially, a house pretty much has to be falling down. And we utilize the fire chief, who has extensive experience in obviously dealing with structure issues with buildings, especially in dealing with fires and different things. And he makes the determination that a property is unsafe and structurally defective. We then share that information with the board. They then pass a resolution tonight declaring the property dangerous. We have to have a public hearing allowing the property owner to come in and explain to us why we shouldn't tear it down. And then the board will either take their testimony and postpone tearing it down and moving forward with demolishing the house, or they will listen to them. And in most cases, we don't even have anyone come in because the house has been vacant for so long, which causes it to get into the state of disrepair that it's in. And the board will move forward with demolishing it. Then we have to post notice and get contractors to bid on demolishing the structure. So I would say from the time that chief goes out and makes his determination that it's structurally defective and should be declared dangerous to when it's actually demolished, 60 to 75 days probably.
So are these buildings typically abandoned?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I'm.
Yeah, because if these houses are in such bad condition that no one can live in them.
Roofs are caved in.
Nobody's in it. The ceilings, the roof's caving in, their
Different
windows are, their walls are collapsing.
Okay, and I know the last time I was here, you guys were talking about the levees, and I just want to reiterate on that right quick. I know you said, Christopher, that you have to speak with the auditor, and he will say yea or nay.
No, what happens is in order to place a levy on the ballot, you have to ask the county auditor how much a particular millage amount or levy would bring in revenue. So which we did, we have to ask, the board was considering either a 2 mil, a 2.5, or a 2.9 levy. And in order to determine which one of those you're going to do, you have to ask the county auditor, how much revenue would that bring in, each one of those? Then we get that number back, then I bring it to the board, and then the board says, okay, it looks like, based on how much we know we need from a budget perspective, the 2.5 is going to bring in the right amount of revenue for us. Then they pass a resolution to place the 2.5 on the ballot. The county auditor doesn't get a say whether or not we put it on the ballot or not. They're simply saying, this is how much revenue you can expect if you were to pass a levy of that much, or that millage amount. So again, this board doesn't get to pass or fail the levy. We just put the issue out and the question out for the residents to get to vote on, but the county auditor just simply tells you how much revenue you can expect.
Okay, because my interpretation was that you had to get a yea or nay.
No.
Okay. So I wrote down 2 million for the fire department and 2 million for police. Is that
2.5
2.5
for each.
Okay, so would that be used on like equipment, or would that be used on your salaries, or?
All of the above.
All of the above. Okay, and then my other question is, I know most places, like, if you can get a grant, like, say if they need equipment or something like that, have you guys tried to do that?
Do what?
I know.
Grants.
That you can get a
Grants.
grant.
Yeah, we do. We apply for grants every year.
You tried that?
Yeah.
So even with the
Yes, absolutely. The best way I can explain it, right now, we are operational costs. I mean, you're looking at a police force of almost 50 sworn officers and probably between full-time and part-time, almost 85 to 90 employees in fire, which is necessary to operate these 24-hour, 7-day-a-week departments of a community that's 18 square miles, 40,000 people, and 15,000 properties. So, in fact, in the literature we put out, FBI statistics show that we should probably, for a community of our size, we should probably have close to 88 officers. But we're doing the job with almost half of that.
We're actually down 3 right now.
So,
That we haven't
and
replaced.
right now, operationally, we are spending more than we're bringing in annual revenue. And you're asking, well, how are you doing that? Well, we're doing that because we are living off of reserves in those two departments. So we have, you've heard of rainy day funds or things that, so in the beginning of a levy, you build up savings because you're spending less than you're bringing in. And that's on purpose. Because at some point, you're going to get to a situation where you're going to start spending more than you're bringing in. And at that point, you have to start dipping into your savings in order to keep the operations going. Right now, we're about to the point where we have no savings left, which means we're either going to have to make significant cuts, which means laying off people, less police officers, less medics and firefighters, or we have to bring in more revenue. And looking at the budget projections, the board has determined, based on the proposal and the recommendation that I made to them, that we should bring in an additional about $1.4 to $1.5 million a year in order to keep the operations at the current level they are and extend those operations for the next 5 or 6 years, and hopefully through prudent fiscal management that this board and the chiefs have exhibited in the previous levies, we can maybe get 10 to 11 years out of this new levy as well. Time will tell, right? I can't predict how much fuel is going to cost. You can only imagine how much gas the police goes through by patrolling 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Same with fire. I can't predict how much the costs are going to be. I can only build in projections. And I have a spreadsheet that's about this long, and they always look at me like, why is this so big and the numbers are so small? It's because I have to fit a lot of stuff on one sheet. And what I'm trying to demonstrate is my best guess, this is how much things are going to cost us 10 years from now, and this is how far the revenue is going to get us based on that expectation. So the levies that we're proposing are, in my professional opinion to the board, my best guess of what we need in order to continue the same level of operation in these departments for the next 6 to 10 years.
And also, I just want to know the perimeters, like what areas do you cover for the?
There's the map.
Everything on that map.
All the yellow
I
parts.
know Forest Park, they have their own,
Right.
you know.
If,
Correct.
if you can figure it out, please let me know, because it's really confusing. But if you see the map with the yellow,
All the colors.
yeah.
That's the township.
That's the township. It's very geographically challenging, but so we somewhat surround a good part of Forest Park.
Actually, no, Forest Park is north of us.
Or I mean,
we're
from
Mount
the
Healthy.
the southwest side.
If they need help, like.
Oh, mutual aid, we do. Police and fire both, we're constantly called to.
The township is
mutual aid.
about 3 times the size of Forest Park.
Right, I understand.
Yeah,
Right, I just wanted to know, because I know, I have seen, you collaborate with the college here and things like that. I just wanted to know the perimeter.
Yep.
That,
You can see all the different parcels.
yeah,
It's because at one time, cities could take away from townships, so originally there was one big rectangle, correct, Chris?
Yeah, we were originally, everything on that map that you see there, back when the township was created in 1795, that was all Springfield Township. And over the years, what happened was individual parts of the township decided they wanted to become their own city or village and not be part of the township anymore. So that's how Forest Park was created. That's how Green Hills, well, Green Hills sort of, I mean, the federal government created Green Hills. But then there's Mount Healthy, North College Hill, Wyoming, parts of Springdale. So all of those areas, North College Hill, all those areas were the township at one time, and then they decided they wanted to be their own area, and that's how that was created. The areas that are left, that are sort of out there, not contiguous or part of the rest of the township, those were areas that weren't included in that city when it was created, so we were left with that little area. So, but everything you see in color on that one map It's the same map, it's just obviously illustrating different things, but everything you see in color, because it's easily visible from here, is Springfield Township.
Yeah, I know Springfield Township is a big wide area. I just wanted to know, like, College Hill has their own.
Yes,
Mount Healthy, North.
correct.
Yeah.
They all have their own.
Things like that, so I know they do help each other. Is that the same for the fire department? Okay. And that take it for my, that's it for my questions for right now. So,
Well, thank you very much
Thank
for
you
coming.
for coming again.
okay.
Is there anyone else? Appearing that there is not, do we have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Meeting's adjourned.
Thank you, everyone, for
Thank you all
coming.
again for coming.